What if I told you that a patch of soil the size of a two-car garage could feed your family for most of the year? Not just a few salads in the summer, real calories, real nutrition for years. Sounds unbelievable, right? But here's the thing. Long before modern agriculture, people had already figured this out. Think about your own backyard for a second. Maybe it's a small patch of grass behind the kitchen, a place where you set up a grill, or let the dog run. Now in one corner, imagine a bed of soil, just 30 feet by 30 feet. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary garden. But it's not. It's a system. And once you understand how that system works, everything changes. Thousands of years ago, indigenous communities in North America were already using a method so efficient, so intelligent, that it's still studied today. It's called the Three Sisters. And what made it powerful was simple. The crops weren't just growing side by side randomly. Each one was solving a problem for the others. The corn went in first, growing tall and straight like a natural pole. Then came the beans. They climbed the corn stalks toward the light, no separate structure needed, and spreading across the ground beneath them was the squash, with its broad leaves acting like a living shield over the soil. That's what made the system so clever. The beans helped enrich the soil. The squash shaded the ground, slowed evaporation, and kept weeds from taking over, and the corn held the whole structure upright. 3 crops, 3 jobs, one small ecosystem. That system fed families for generations, and in many places, the basic logic still holds up. So why does growing food feel so difficult now? Because somewhere along the way, we stopped thinking in systems. Modern farming became incredibly good at producing huge amounts of single crops, but that efficiency came with a cost. Monocultures need more fertilizer, more irrigation, more pest control, more intervention. And once that became the norm, the older knowledge started to look primitive, even though in some ways it was far more resilient. So today, when most people try to grow food, they don't build a system. They just plant a few things they like. Tomatoes, herbs, maybe a pepper plant, and at first it feels easy enough. But then the leaves start turning yellow. Pests show up. The soil dries out. Suddenly you're buying fertilizer, searching for answers, and trying to rescue plants one by one. What we forget is that food was never supposed to depend on this much constant effort. It became hard because we made it hard by centralizing, industrializing, and outsourcing the one thing every human community once knew how to do for itself. But then, World War II came along and proved in 5 months that we hadn't lost the instinct. That's when the US government launched the Victory Garden program to deal with food shortages during the war. Over 20 million home gardens were created. Ordinary people like you and me growing food in their own yards. By 1944, they were producing around 40% of the country's vegetables. And these weren't random gardens. They were planted using intercropping, the same idea behind the Three Sisters. Now you might think, okay, but that was wartime. People were forced to make it work. But here's where it gets consistent. In 2011, researchers in South Carolina set out to document a quiet living tradition. They studied 208 rural home gardens of families growing food on less than 1/10 of an acre. These families were getting 50 to 70% of their total dietary needs from their own soil. Calories from sweet potatoes, protein from cowpeas, vitamins from leafy greens, even cooking oils from coconut. Not because they worked on it constantly, but because they planted in layers, tall, medium, low, and root crops, all occupying the same space at different times. Rainwater caught in simple trenches. Kitchen waste returned directly to the soil, a system designed to take care of itself, mostly requiring very little input. But if you're thinking, I don't even have a backyard, then listen to this. In Dhaka, Bangladesh, one of the most crowded cities on earth, families are growing food on rooftops the size of a studio apartment. They bring up compost in buckets. They line old tin roofs with plastic and drill drainage holes. One study found that a space just 15 feet by 15 feet produced 120 pounds of vegetables over 6 months. For a family of 4, that's a fresh vegetable with dinner for half the year. That's a meaningful amount of food from a space most people could actually manage. So, why does this matter? Because more and more of our food is becoming distant, controlled, and increasingly artificial. Lab grown products are rising, supply chains decide what's available, and most people have no direct connection to how their food is produced. Growing even a small amount changes that. So, here's how you start. You start with structure. Pick a manageable plot, even something around 15 by 15 feet. First, improve the soil. Add compost. Use kitchen scraps. Build life in the ground. Then, think in terms of roles for the plants. Choose one crop that gives real calories, like potatoes or corn. Then choose one that supports the soil, like beans, which add nitrogen back into it. Then choose one that protects the ground, like squash or sweet potatoes. These plants spread and shade the soil, while helping it retain moisture at the same time. Then add greens like kale or chard around the edges for small, repeat harvests. Water the soil deeply, not just the leaves. And then observe. The first year is mostly learning. The second year, things begin to stabilize. And by the third, you're not constantly babysitting plants anymore. You're harvesting from a system that's starting to support itself. And that's the real shift. This isn't about preparing for collapse, it's about remembering that a backyard can be more than decoration. It can be a working system, a small one, a quiet one, but a real one.